How many times have you heard that? To succeed in life, you need to have everything planned. Well, the story of St. Columban proves just the opposite. He left his land without riches, without guarantees, without even knowing where the wind would take him. He set out with only faith in his heart. And that faith was enough to face kings, weather storms, and transform ruins into fortresses. It seems crazy, doesn't it? But perhaps the greatest folly is to believe that we need certainties to move forward. The truth is that faith, when turned into action, moves mountains and builds futures that logic would never dare predict. And it is at this point that his life challenges us. How far would you be willing to go simply by trusting in what you believe? Imagine a young man immersed in an environment where silence spoke louder than any words. Such was Columbanus's life at the Bangor Monastery. There, between cold walls and incessant prayers, he was polished like a rough stone until he became a diamond. The cold bit, but it was in the warmth of faith that he grew stronger. This rigorous discipline is reminiscent of when someone decides to trade immediate pleasures for a tough workout at the gym or nights of intense study, betting on a greater future. Bangor was a spiritual academy, and each day there was a weight lifted toward the heavens. The routine was simple, but intense enough to frighten many today. Fasting wasn't a fad or a passing diet. It was a constant practice that taught self-mastery. Prayer wasn't an obligation, but a breath of the soul. Work wasn't a punishment, but an honor. It's like the student who forgoes parties to immerse himself in books, or the entrepreneur who wakes before the sun to build something solid. Bangor taught Columbanus that greatness is born of silent effort, far from applause, and this effort forged within him a strength that nothing could break. What's most fascinating is that, amid such rigor, his humility flourished. He didn't seek prominence, but naturally became an example. He was like that person who, without realizing it, inspires colleagues simply by the way he lives, by the constancy and serenity he exudes. Columbanus possessed a serene peace that was contagious to those who came near him. And it was precisely in this peace, cultivated in Bangor, that the restlessness was born that would lead him to something even greater, something that wouldn't be limited to the monastery walls but would extend into the unknown. Leaving one's homeland is never easy, especially when it involves giving up everything to follow only an inner voice. Columbanus did exactly that. He abandoned the safety of Bangor and set out with 12 companions toward the unknown. There were no detailed maps, no promises of comfort, only the conviction that God was calling him to something greater. It's like when someone decides to leave a stable job to start a business, trusting more in vision than logic. The courage of this step teaches us that true safety lies not in the harbor, but in trusting the one who guides the journey. The crossing was anything but smooth. Imagine fragile boats facing waves that felt like walls, winds that screamed like beasts, and nights so dark they seemed to swallow hope. While many despaired, Columbanus remained standing, arms raised, praying firmly. This gesture conveyed strength, like a leader who remains calm even when everything around him collapses. The lesson here is clear. The attitude of the one who guides can change the destiny of everyone around him. How many times, at home or at work, have we needed to be that beacon in the midst of the storm? When they finally reached the European continent, the feeling was not a final victory, but of a new beginning. The relief of surviving the journey gave way to certainty. The real challenge began there. It's like finishing college and realizing that real life is just beginning, or overcoming a major problem and understanding that new obstacles lie ahead. Columbanus and his companions arrived, exhausted but full of purpose, ready to transform each step into a new story. And it was in this new land that he would shape something that would change all of Europe. Arriving in France, Columbanus didn't see ruins as ruins, but as fertile ground for new beginnings. Where others saw broken stones and fallen walls, he saw seeds of hope. Thus were born places like Annegray, Luxeuil, and Fontaines, which became true fortresses of faith and discipline. It's like someone who looks at an abandoned house and, instead of seeing problems, imagines a home full of life. Columbanus had this transformative outlook, and it was this that began a work that spanned centuries. Monasteries were not only temples of prayer, but living centers of learning and culture. There, the day began with hymns, but also blended with hard work in the fields, copying manuscripts and hospitality to pilgrims. Young nobles and peasants gathered side by side, learning that true greatness lies in the balance between spirit and sweat. It's like today, when someone decides to balance faith with practical action, combining moments of prayer with concrete decisions to improve their lives. This combination made the monasteries shine like beacons amid the decadence of the time. And what was most impressive was the strength of his monastic rule, which demanded not only faith but daily discipline. No complacency, no superficial spirituality. It was prayer, penance, and constant service. It was like a coach who accepts no excuses but knows that hard work brings real results. Therefore, Columban's monasteries multiplied, attracting people seeking greater meaning in life. But the growth of this work also began to attract the attention of the powerful, and with it would arise the next great challenge. Columban's success did not go unnoticed. His monasteries flourished, his influence grew, and this bothered the dignitaries. Bishops who felt threatened, and even Queen Brunhild began to see him as a thorn in their side. After all, a man who preached against corruption and lived simply was a living reminder of all that the court had lost. It's like when someone honest appears in a company dominated by shady interests. Their very presence is a silent denunciation. Columbanus didn't need to raise flags. His life was the strongest sermon, but there were times when he spoke with cutting clarity. In one of his sermons, he declared that where lust reigned, there was no peace. Words that in the mouth of another might have gone unnoticed, but coming from him, they resounded like thunder echoing to the corridors of power. This kind of courage is rare because it requires more than faith. It requires renouncing the fear of consequences. How many of us, in everyday situations, don't remain silent in the face of error to avoid problems? Columbanus shows that sometimes silence can be complicity. The result was exile, expelled, separated from what he had built. It seemed his work would be interrupted, but in truth, this exile only paved the way for something even greater. It's like when life closes a door abruptly and unfairly, but only to push us towards something we would never have dared to pursue on our own. Columbanus, even when expelled, did not give in. He transformed exile into a new opportunity, and it was in this new stage that he found the land where he would bring to fruition the most enduring project of his life. Arriving in Italy, many would expect to find a weary man, worn down by struggle and exile. But Columbano saw every hardship as a stepping stone to something greater. This is how the Bobbio Abbey was born, a place that quickly became a spiritual and cultural reference. Imagine someone who unjustly loses their job and decides, instead of giving in to discouragement, to open a new business that transforms their life and the lives of many others. That's exactly what Columbano did, transforming loss into rebirth. In Bobbio, the balance between prayer, work, and culture became a trademark. The monks not only prayed but also preserved precious manuscripts, saving part of the spiritual and intellectual heritage that might otherwise have been lost forever. It's like someone who, in digital times, keeps family memories in physical albums, preserving stories that would give meaning to future generations. Columbano understood that caring for faith was also caring for memory, and this vision gave Bobbio a special brilliance. The abbey soon became a veritable garden in the middle of the desert. Pilgrims arrived, young people sought guidance, and even nobles saw in Bobbio a beacon of hope in times of darkness. The curious thing is that all of this arose from exile, from a situation that seemed like failure. This reminds us that often what we interpret as defeat can actually be the foundation of an even greater victory. And it was in this climate of rebirth that Columbanus lived his final years, preparing to leave an eternal mark. In the final years of his life, Columbanus already bore the marks of time on his body, but his soul remained steadfast, like a flame that the wind cannot extinguish. Even weakened, he maintained the rhythm of prayer and service, teaching his disciples more by example than by words. He is like that grandfather who, even tired, insists on passing on values to his family, showing that character does not age. Columbanus understood that every gesture, however simple, could be the seed of eternity. The night before his death, the monks noticed a strange glow in the sky. Stars seemed to dance gently over the valley, and an indescribable peace enveloped the abbey. Columbanus asked to be taken back to the chapel. There, lying on the stone floor, he slowly recited Psalm 23. "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He finished the prayer, smiled softly, and closed his eyes. His soul departed like a flame that gently extinguishes without fanfare, but leaving an eternal warmth in everyone's hearts. He knew he would not be there forever, so he prepared his monks to continue his mission. It wasn't enough to pray. One had to live with courage, discipline, and unwavering faith. It's like a leader who trains his team not only to obey, but to take responsibility when the time comes. Columbanus didn't train dependent followers, but men capable of carrying the flame of hope amidst darkness. This strategic vision ensured his influence endures. And when he departed, he left more than monasteries. He left a network of men and ideas that shaped the future of Europe. His life proved that a simple person, when guided by faith and humility, could challenge kings, tear down walls of corruption, and keep the flame of hope alive. It's like a stone thrown into a lake. The ripples continue to spread long after it sinks. Columbanus is gone, but his waves continue to echo to this day, inspiring those who believe it is possible to change the world with steps of faith. Now that you've walked in Columban's footsteps, I ask you, what's stopping you from taking the next step in your life? How many times have you stopped taking action because you didn't have all the answers? Remember, he started with nothing, but built everything with faith and discipline. So, what would happen if you trusted more in what you believe, instead of clinging to fear of the unknown? Perhaps today is a time to transform ruins into new opportunities, as Columban did in every place he visited. Don't you have a Bob Bio waiting to blossom before you? Think. What habit needs to change? What decision have you been putting off? What step do you need to take without waiting for perfect conditions? This saint's legacy nudges us right where we're still complacent. And if this story has awakened something in you, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and continue walking with me through each episode, because here you'll find not just stories, but tools to transform your life. After all, those who learn from the greats of the past write an even greater story in the present.